Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock.
My name is Danny.
And we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight. Got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet. Cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey everybody,
Went
welcome.
into the bathroom and fart and see if it picks up.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That's the B-roll. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are here at the podcast movement at the Gaylord Resort on a national harbor in Maryland.
Right, Washington, D.C.
I feel like it's quite a distance from Washington, D.C.
I can see the White House from our hotel.
I know, I can see the Capitol building
it's
too.
official. It's
Fine.
official.
Okay. Well, anyway, we are here together. It's been fun. We've been here for a few days now, actually,
Yeah.
and gotten to meet some really awesome people and experience just some really great speakers and find some new resources to
So many. Yeah.
to really amp up what we do on a weekly basis.
Just kind of recognize that we're amateurs and we need some professional equipment.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like I was, really solid at what I was doing, and then realized like I was barely scratching the surface.
I had so many people that kind of, I told them like what mic we were using, and they were okay with the mics. The mics are good mics.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, those are fine. I mean, if it's what you like, and I'm thinking, are you being nice to me? Because you're not using this one.
Yeah. I feel like it's sort of like when you enter into, like, if you're a rookie entering into something, you're like, oh, I've got this and it's so great. And you're like, oh, kid.
Yep.
That's
You
awesome.
Sweet summer child.
Yeah, and then you walk around and then you see like what the big boys are using, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yep.
new mindset.
Whoops. Was a little bit overconfident.
But what we wanted to do was just share a little bit about what it's been like to come to this conference. I think, one, there's some interesting perspective just from going to a conference like this compared to going to HomeDadCon.
Yep,
and
difference.
then also, two, just some of the different things that we heard and what that means as far as like what we'd like to try to implement, but not go too into the weeds on it.
Yeah, because we can get really geeky with all this tech stuff. I mean, we could get really just goofily geeky because there's so much equipment and so many apps that you could use and so many things we could access. But none of that is going to be something that I think more than like 5 people other than us wants to talk about or listen to.
We'll save it for our TED Talk.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way to put
that's
that.
it. When I'm an expert on podcasting, we'll talk about that.
But I will say this. So kind of starting things off, Monday night was the kickoff to everything. And registration was very interesting. Standing in line, talking to some different people. I think the funniest part of that was, one, people were starting to notice like the Home Dad Chat hat and kind of asking some questions. You were wearing your Milwaukee shirt.
Yep.
Guys were, folks were seeing that, and that was definitely drawing some attention.
I had so many people go, "Hey, Pabst Blue Rip." Oh wait, that's right. Dads don't babysit. Do you want to talk about that? Because I'm ready.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun little introductory. We started really kind of getting people coming up for that. I thought it was great that the guy behind us, who has a military podcast, goes and walks up all the way to the front of the line, and he's like, "Hey, you said 3:00. We're all here. Why is this line not moving?"
Yeah.
Next thing you know, the line starts moving. I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it takes right there."
Yep.
So yeah, it was fun going through that, and honestly, people were pretty excited to meet each other.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. It felt in this way, and probably only this way, it felt kind of like HomeDadCon, which is of course my favorite convention in the world.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have that, you're not asking people really what they do. You're just going, so what's your podcast about? Or do you have a podcast, or are you here as a sponsor? Most of them had the lanyards. I mean the badges that showed what they were there
Right.
for.
There was a lot of that too. Like you'd walk around and like you could watch people's eyes. Like they weren't looking at you. They were looking at what was on your badge,
Mm-hmm.
and then based on that, they were deciding whether they wanted to keep walking or they wanted to stop and ask you a question.
And I didn't meet a single person throughout this entire time who wasn't willing to talk to me, that
Yeah.
wanted to talk about just about our podcasts and our mechanics and logistics and how everything set up. They were fine to talk about all that, and it was a really welcoming community.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Yeah, I also like the fact too. I don't think I got asked one time like, "Oh, you're an at-home dad. Where are your kids?" Like no one asked that question, which
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
I was really happy about that.
Yeah.
It was just definitely like this respect of like, yeah, of course, like it wasn't even asked. Like that's the thing. There was no mention of it, and I think that is so different than sometimes when you're out in public.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing that I thought was interesting though was on those badges is a QR code that you could you could scan through their podcast movement app, and then it connected you with that attendee. So if you wanted to like ask them questions or just be able to check out their podcast or whatever it was,
website or anything,
it was just a great networking tool for that.
Yep. I liked it a lot. And one of the tips that I saw from someone that's gone to the podcast movement for a lot of years was to fill out your profile. On the app, just to go ahead and put everything in there, make sure you've got everything covered, don't have people try to look for your information. And this is more of like a business networking thing,
Oh yeah.
But I love the fact that you could get so much information about somebody and so much relevant information about somebody just by scanning their badge. I love the idea. I don't think we would have any need for it at our convention, but it really just extends, like we many years ago when business cards were the biggest thing, and then they go to the dot cards, which I think everybody should have a dot card because they're great. But moving on to this, where you scan somebody's QR code, and it's specifically for this event.
Yeah.
Which is much more, I think, useful and efficient, because you don't have to learn about, anything else about me other than the National At Home Dad Network and our podcast.
Yeah.
And that's it. Which I think is very well done for them. I like their app.
Yeah, I will say too, another thing that, as far as like a difference between this convention and HomeDadCon, is the lack of food.
Yeah, right.
For anybody that's been to HomeDadCon, there's lots of food that's served. It's you're taken care of. Even in afternoon, like drinks, and of course, here lately the hotels have had some awesome happy hours and stuff. For what it's worth, I mean, this is a beautiful hotel.
It is.
There are lots of amenities, but nothing is for free. Yeah. Hardly ever.
It is a beautiful, and it's a resort, so there's that aspect of it. But it's got like a, I don't know, 15 or 18 story atrium basically over between the two large hotel buildings where all of their smaller events are going.
Yeah.
And then they have a little grab and go right there. I'm like, this is a great idea. I'll go in there and get me a plate. I got deviled eggs and some cheese. Not deviled eggs, excuse me. Boiled eggs. Deviled eggs sounds good. Boiled eggs and some cheese and some walnuts and some like carrot sticks or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And it was $12.
Right.
And I went, wait, come on. But there again, DC's kind of an expensive town.
Yeah.
When we went into town, the restaurants were also. I got a tiny little helping of barbecue and macaroni and cheese and a very good piece of cornbread, but it was like $20. I went, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
That was
not happy.
I was looking at they had tuna salad on a bun. It was like two of them. They were like mini versions, almost like sliders or whatever. And they went at like $14. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I was like, a can of tuna is like barely $1.
Yeah.
And like once you add in the other stuff, I mean, like you're up to maybe a couple dollars plus the buns. I'm like, I could understand maybe paying $8 for that.
Yeah.
Maybe even 10.
Maybe 10.
But to pay $14, I'm like, are you serious? Like, I'm paying for like a case of tuna.
Right.
So just stuff like that. I mean, it just makes you appreciate HomeDadCon that much more.
It does.
But it is different too. I mean, this is the people that are coming here. It's completely different in that case. Now the other thing too is everybody was really interested in what our podcast was.
Mm-hmm.
Like lots of people, or they were also very interested. My backpacks got the patch from last year for Dads Don't Babysit, and there were lots of people walking by going, "Oh, I love your patch," and so that started a conversation too. What I'm really curious of is to see how all of that translates into listenership.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see how
If that changes at all.
if it changes, if we see a spike of any kind out of it. I will say this though, if there's one thing that I would take away from one of the first things I would take away from this experience is I don't think that we ask our listeners, we kind of just like hope that this happens, but we don't ask our listeners enough of like, hey, like please make sure you share this, like share the episode, get it out there, that kind of thing. And I think that that's the one thing that I would probably start with as far as like putting into our show is making sure we say, hey, like, like, share, and follow, our show. And if you're already following it and you really like it, share it so that way others can enjoy it as well.
I see, for me, a part of that, the reason why we haven't really done it, or I certainly haven't pushed it, is because we're talking to our membership most of the time.
Most of the time.
We're talking to our community. We're not necessarily yet a podcast about fatherhood or involved fathers, or so we're starting out with, we're speaking directly to the people we know.
Sure.
Our community. I would probably say 90% of the people that have listened regularly up to this point, probably I would know them by name, and it's great, and I love it. But I think we weren't really ready to try to move beyond that. Looking at our equipment and looking at our lack of all of these really cool apps and AI that we need to absolutely have. Oh my God. But I think we just weren't really at a point where we wanted to try that. But I think we are now.
Yeah.
To a point where we're just ready to kind of look at the greater area of fatherhood in general. Not ever leave our niche, of course. We're at-home dads, and then we'll always will be. But to see how we can reach people about those issues of both at-home parents, but also work-from-home parents, remote parents, or just involved parents.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of what I think being an at-home dad comes down to, is that you're involved with your kids' lives. And I think that's that should be the new definition of just fatherhood.
Yeah, I had that conversation with a few different guys that I came in contact with within the podcast sphere of the businesses. They're like, yeah, I'm a work from home dad. Do I fit into the category of being an at home dad? And I was just like, okay, well, let me ask you a couple questions. Just curious, are you the person that if your kids something happens at school, that they're going to call and they're going to talk to you, and you're the one that you have the flexibility to step away? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, to me, that right there, you're an at home
You're the
dad.
primary caretaker.
Yeah, you're the primary caretaker.
Caregiver.
So that for me, it opens up a wider category for just being able to bring in people who maybe they never thought that they fit into that category.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yep. So that was a big part of it.
And very much a part of our No Dad Alone campaign.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people about that.
Really steps into the fact that we want all dads to understand they have a support group. They have a mentor, in a men's group, like we always talked about. There's a place for you to go where you can talk about whatever it might be about fatherhood that is wonderful and amazing, or humorous, or just irritating. We've all been there at one point or another, and in different ways, and so you have that community.
Yeah.
And No Dad Alone really puts that forth very well.
Yeah, I had quite a few conversations with people being able to say, hey, listen, we've got this campaign going, No Dad Alone, and just being able to talk to them a little bit about it. And the response was really good. It's a lot of positivity, a lot of just wow, yeah, that I didn't really think of it that way, but that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Definitely ran into a few moms that was that way too.
Yep.
So that was pretty cool.
I saw a baby. Just gonna say.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was a
eight,
baby.
9 months old. Adorable baby. And the lady actually is. She runs a company to help women with ADHD in getting work and keeping work.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when your ADHD will just absolutely get in the way of you working a standard job and making sure that they have the tools that they need, not only to handle maybe how ADHD hits you at work, but also how to handle your job and let them know ahead of time. Look, this or this will happen.
Yeah.
So that was very cool. But she brought her baby, and that was even better. It was adorable, but she wouldn't let me hold him. She was fine. She was really, she was, because he's, like I said, he's not that old. Probably not even 8 months, 9 months old. But she said, the number of times I've heard men come up and tell me they would love to hold this baby, I just don't think they remember how messy they are. And I went, well, I was an at-home dad, have been for 14 years, and I changed almost every single diaper that all 4 of my kids went through. I'm with you, okay? We've had the reflux, we've had hand, foot, and mouth. We've had all of the things that you could have. So, yeah, I get it, but absolutely fine with not holding your baby, of course, because that's your baby. So it's certainly not my place to do it. But
yeah, definitely. Well, another thing, too, was with all the different groups that were here, there were, some great connections with other nonprofits. Mm-hmm. Just connections also too with just some other podcasts that sort of fit in line with us, or even so far to go into. I remember I had a conversation with a lady who is a part of, it's a company called Podcasters, mm-hmm. but the last part is HERS, so it's Podcast for Women. Mm-hmm. And
cool.
I was talking with them about the fact, I'm like, would any of these shows be interested in having a dad come on and just like talk about life as an at-home dad, and just be able to ask questions, because I was like, there's so many different things. And she goes, well, is it really that different, an at-home dad to a stay-at-home mom? And I was like, let's have a conversation about that. I go, when you go to the grocery store with your kids, I go, does somebody come up to you and say, oh, it's so nice that you're giving your partner some time alone? She's like, no. I go, okay. I go, when you go to a park, I go, does anybody else in there maybe think that you're a predator, child predator kind of deal? She goes, no. I go, okay. I said, has anybody ever just come up to you and been like, oh, it's so great that you're spending time with your children? And she goes, no. I go, okay. I go, that's the difference between an at-home dad and an at-home mom.
Yeah.
I was like, should it be that way? No. Is it that way? Yes. I go, the only way that stereotype is going to get broken down is by getting the word out. Mm-hmm. And having that conversation. And I feel like we basically just kind of like put ourselves in a place, because we had conversations with multiple different groups. We put ourselves in a place where I'm like, okay, what is this going to look like over the next month or so? Like how many people are actually going to reach out to us mm-hmm. to have us come on and talk, or to, like, it doesn't even have to be us. I feel like there's listeners, in our audience who would be great also too, depending on what the category is.
No, it needs to be us.
You think it needs to be us?
Stars. Come on. You know that.
Aw. You do.
But I do feel like a star, because I want to say one thing before we run out of time or battery on this interesting little mic you have. I want to say that the National At Home Dad Network, we did approach them at their board retreat, and I was there, so the board retreat, I guess, and asked them if they would pay for our ticket to come here. And it was a fairly big ask. It was, $260 or something, $250, something like that. It was up there, right?
I mean, it's about this. Yeah, it was a little bit more than...
It wasn't huge, but it was an ask.
Sure, yeah.
And especially for, why? Why? Well, because our podcast is a big part of the organization. It really is. It gets a lot of information out to our members. It gives our members a place where they can talk and call us and say, hey, what's going on with this, that, and the other. But I wanted to say, too, because we are a nonprofit, I want to make it clear that they only paid for our ticket.
Right.
They did not pay for the surprisingly expected expensive resort hotel.
Right.
And they did not pay for our airfare or travel or food or anything else like that.
Yeah. Which
Because
that proposal will be next year. No, I was kidding.
yeah, that's next year. Absolutely. But I want to make sure we say that because I don't want people thinking, oh, what? They're spending all this money to send these guys out. Well, it was an amount of money. Maybe $500 tops, $500, $600 maybe. But the reality of it is this has been an incredibly useful week or 3-4 days for us as wannabe professional podcasters.
Yeah.
We want to give our listeners the very best show that we can. We want to have them engaged. We want to build our community, and finding ways to give back to your community or to enhance what you do already, I think, is very important for our organization.
Yeah.
And it's so much so that I was the one that pitched it. It was not my idea. Of course, it was your idea, but I would not have pitched it on my own if you hadn't said, I think this is really something that would help us. And it really has.
Oh, I mean, the expo floor and all of the different resources that were there was awesome. Like, we have some just great... We have a lot of research to do, but it's good research because, one, there's all these tools out there that we didn't know about. A lot of them are very pro nonprofit to help out, to get involved, which is nice, like discounts and things like that to do it. But the thing with it is that also as parents who have children that were at home running around, where there's some great tools in there for cutting down the amount of time that we spend. Yes. Especially me editing the podcast, to cut that down significantly, and also to get a broader reach of the show to the dads that maybe aren't hearing it. I think that the connections with some of these other platforms that are reaching, that can reach in different areas that we haven't touched, is going to help to grow the show. Also, too, like you were talking about that most of our listenership's like 90%, like our members or whatever. That 10% that's not, based on the analytics that we have in our show, are women. And so I'm really happy to see that, because that percentage was really low when we started the show.
Yeah.
And it's grown because of some of the different shows that we have done. And so I just kind of want to see where that's going to go from there. And there's some different ways to do that. And too, like, you talk about, we went to the board and we asked for money and stuff. I think that too, like, there's options for if people are like, I really like this show and I want to be able to like help out. And like, there's ways for us to implement like a tipping system or whatever, or some sort of way that's like, hey, like, yeah, like, that was worth $5 of my time, like that kind of thing. And so we're looking into things like that, and it's nothing that we're like expecting listeners to do, but I think having that avenue, you think about it, you put a tip jar out when you're doing something and people are just like, heck yeah, like I wish there was a way for me to like, just show my gratitude, that type of thing. So,
$5 to get Danny to shut up. Go. See if it works.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it for $5.
That's not going to work.
It's not going to happen. I'd be able to way more than $5.
That's not going to work. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, there's just lots of great tools out there for that, and it was really neat too. The amount of people that just like they were looking on the app for us. We had a few people that just reached out, were like, hey, like I saw your thing. I listened to a show.
Right.
Can we connect?
What blew me away is that people had listened to the show.
Oh yeah,
like from the time we filled out our thing to here, somebody. I remember 2 different people said, "Oh yeah, I listened to an episode. It was really this and this and this." I'm like, what? When did you have time? And you didn't listen to the whole thing, right? You just kind of skimmed it. Yeah, it was very.
That's those DC. Very that's that geo track, whatever, like the geography tracking thing, where basically like your algorithm hits and it's like, oh, that's there. It's kind of like Facebook. It's like, oh, great! All of a sudden, I've got like all these places to go to in DC thing.
Yeah.
So, but still, that's great. I mean, there was the one like when we posted the episode prior to this, put it on Instagram. The next morning, I woke up and somebody had said, hey, like, I'm here also, like, can we meet up? And then sure
yeah.
enough, like, we ended up getting to hang out with him for a little. John,
Yeah,
he's
I
all
remember
about
John said
Toyotas.
that.
So
Yeah,
that
he
was,
is
we
very
had
much, yeah.
we were just going on about that.
Yeah.
So, but that's the cool thing about this, and that's what that was kind of what made it feel like HomeDadCon though too, because you go to HomeDadCon. If you're in the Discord channel and you're like, I don't want to talk on here, but I'll kind of be a wallflower or whatever, great, you can kind of see what's going on. We didn't really have that going into it, but there was still like the outgoingness to it. When you go to HomeDadCon and you get involved in Discord and you start having those conversations, you get to know these guys a little better. And then when you get to meet them in person, you're like, oh, sweet. Like, you just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And it felt very much coming in here almost like the new kids in school kind of deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's nice. Everybody's kind of got over that being that kind of way in high school, and so it's very much more welcoming.
I was in a lot of ways also just like high school. There was such a diverse range of podcasts and things that people do podcasts on, and it was all cool and amazing and surprising. But the fact that they have them going and going and going, it was just incredible, because again, you're talking about people that this is their passion. Like, if you get me talking about the network or the podcast or the convention, I'm going to get very passionate and animated. I'm just going to just verbally vomit all over you everything I ever know about this stuff, because it's my geek, right? It's what I really love. And you see that about so many other people. I mean, there was a lady, amazing lady I met, who has a podcast about, of all things, congenitive heart failure, or heart conditions. And I was just like, okay, and I'm thinking, what do I know about? I would just go Google it and read one article and I'd be okay. But it's so much more to that, and especially to her. And it's something I'm looking forward to listening to later in the week if we ever get home. But just the passion that she had is equal to the passion that I feel we have about fatherhood and the network and everything else. And that's, to me, a wonderful way to meet people.
Yeah.
Because you just find out what their passion is. The lady with all the gardening patches.
Yeah.
I just saw her. I didn't get to speak to her, but
she was super helpful. Garden DC, I think, is what her podcast was. I think her name is Kathy, and I just want to say thank you for helping me get through the metro yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, different things like that. I was thinking about the fact that oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, anyway, there's so much that was going on.
Yeah,
there was, and
I really feel like we got our value out of it.
Oh yeah,
I really feel like, definitely, percentage-wise, the amount that the organization put into it, we definitely got that, because but I feel like it was a worthwhile trip. And I feel like, with the airfare and everything else, that it was worth investing this time. Your kids are going back to school, or went today?
They went back to school today.
Yeah, and my kids, one is on a road trip solo from Wisconsin down to somewhere, Akron, Ohio, and back. And I'm like, by yourself? And okay, I'll be in Washington. And my kids are going to school next week. Week or whatever. But this is not the month to really be taking off and doing something.
Oh yeah,
unless it's worthwhile.
Yeah,
and I feel like it was really worthwhile.
It was. I mean, there's definitely been stress that we've talked back and forth about how our spouses have been telling us what's been going on at home.
A little crazy at home,
which makes it interesting. But I think that just kind of comes with the territory a lot of times too. I just can't talk about HomeDadCon for like the next 2 weeks, or else I'm not gonna go.
That's what I feel. I feel needed and appreciated. Maybe not appreciated. I feel needed.
Sure.
Yeah. I was missed, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's what I'm happy about.
Oh, I know. The other thing I was just thinking about. So I didn't realize this, but there are kids podcasts, like actually produced by kids, and
nice. I didn't.
Yeah,
see that at all.
I went to this talk on it. They had a panel, and it was really cool. Actually, the reason I went was because one of the CEOs of one of this like podcast app, which I'm hoping that we can do some things with. So I don't want to put too much out there for it, because kind of want to reel them in. But anyway, it was just interesting to hear kind of what they're doing, and also too like just the difficulty they have in trying to get sponsorship, because people are like, well, how do we use kids, like that kind of deal for like, podcasting and advertising. But I think that one thing that I figured kind of felt is that us getting involved with being able to promote their podcasts, and then also too, like, I thought it would be kind of neat, like you think about it, kids always all the time want to come up to mom and dad and be like, hey mom and dad, have you heard about this? Have you seen it? And I'm like, well, can we get advertisement on there that talks about HomeDadCon or about the podcast or about the organization, to where they'd be like, hey dad, you're an at-home dad, did you know about this? Like, and then that draws them in to be like, what are you talking about? Because even too, sometimes the parents and the kids are actually listening to the podcast together. So there's that ability. And I had never really thought about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what a great avenue for us to try to get some more reach out of it.
Yeah.
And also too, at the same time, introduce our audience to these podcasts that their kids can listen to.
Right. That was where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Is to give the kids the opportunity. We met because podcasting is so open to anybody. We met with Melissa Davidson today and her son.
Yeah.
And they have a little podcast they do together. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but it's something they do. It's educational for one, so it does give him that kind of an outlet, but also it's just for them to do together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not going to be, no child's podcast is going to be, the most amazing thing you've ever heard in your life, right? It might be great,
but it can be therapeutic.
It can just be fun.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, I don't know about you, but this will surprise nobody, but I used to record myself on a little cassette recorder that we had and pretend to do a news show, pretend to do the weather and stuff like that, or that's the only announcers we had at the time. So I would have been a podcaster as a child had I had had it existed. And to think about your kids, especially because how many of your kids want to be a YouTube star? If
Right.
you ask them what they want to do for a living, is it YouTube? Okay, cool. Do it. Enjoy it. Check it for, do like YouTube Kids or whatever, keep your kids safe online, things like that. But let them have that. Imagine loving doing that and then having your mom or dad come in and sit down and do it with you.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's
that's
some great,
something that just is mind-blowing.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. I mean, there's some great stuff out there like that, actually, especially from YouTube standpoint. Like that was last summer, I think. The kids wanted to draw all the time, and we actually found a dad and his kids that would show you how to draw all these really cool things and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's this great bonding that comes with it. So yeah, this event's been amazing.
Agreed.
We got one more like half day basically.
Yep,
they
half
just
day
go half a day tomorrow, and then we head back home, and then
And we didn't even talk about the keynotes.
yeah.
I think the keynotes are much more like podcast business centric. Not
Yeah.
really, but like the I don't want to say industry, I don't know what word I would use, but it's more the powerhouses in podcasting and vodcasting and radio, people that came in that are huge names with millions and millions of views or listens or whatever, downloads, and they came in and they're rock stars.
I didn't know any of them.
Well, you can tell that.
But you could tell other people did.
These are like big names, and I'm like,
Sure.
cool. I don't know who that is, but I'm very glad that you know who that is, and that those kind of things for the keynotes, I think, really wouldn't appeal to someone who isn't a podcaster.
Yeah. The only one that I really thought was interesting was because I love NPR. Was getting to see Rachel Martin and Ira Glass on stage.
Yeah.
And Ira Glass is hilarious.
Yeah?
Like, he did not hold back at all on his answers, because they were playing, like, their the game show that she does.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I didn't really know anybody else. I think I enjoyed a lot of the breakout sessions, which, by the way, oh my gosh, talk about just, like, speed dating.
Yeah.
20 minutes for some folks got 30 minutes. There was a couple 45-minute ones in there, but
There was no going over.
no. But the other cool thing about that is that they did it all in the expo hall, and to help block out the noise that was going on around, they gave you noise canceling headphones that went directly to the people with the microphones, so
Yeah.
you had this
You can
clear,
listen directly to the presentation.
yeah, very clear audio, and it was great because half the time I wasn't having to look up and watch them. I was able to just like write notes and just have it to be that way, which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very cool thing. Very, very future. I like living in the future.
Yeah.
It's very future.
Lots of cool techie things.
Yeah.
Lots of cool swag.
Yeah, a lot of swag.
Lots of awesome pins
Yeah,
lots of pins for our for our
Amazing.
lanyards.
It's amazing how great pins are on your lanyard.
So many cool
Board of
pins.
directors. I'm talking to you.
So many great pins. I love
Yeah,
it. We got
yeah.
we've collected quite a few. I really like the lanyard
Yeah,
clip that we
5.
have. I might actually use that for HomeDadCon.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool clip.
It is a really cool
that's
clip.
Well done. Yeah. I don't know that we could afford that one, but
No,
but it's
that's
well
heavy
made.
duty. It's got
Yeah, it's there to stay for
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
For sure.
Oh, but anyway, so lots of fun. And
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Have a lot of things that I think we can change and add on to and improve and just refine in some cases.
Definitely.
And also, I will say it was great to see another convention.
Yeah.
When my experience has mainly been either Dragon Con, which is its own animal, and I definitely don't remember anything about that because I was partying all the time, or our convention,
Yeah.
where, again, comparing it.
Yeah.
And looking at it going, wow, because I mentioned, I wonder how much they spend on just lights and their audio,
I mean,
and the cameras and everything. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way we could do this.
It's
This
like
is
10 to 20 grand
just-
easily.
Yeah, this is I mean, they had a crew of people.
Yeah, they had all
do
the
these things
photographers. There were
for, yeah.
photographers everywhere, just walking around, just capturing so much stuff.
Maybe someday, maybe we'll get a grant or a sponsor that'll say, hey, I just want want people to walk around at HomeDadCon and take pictures of dads doing dad stuff. Cool,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, no, it's been well orchestrated. It's been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to going home. But we're gonna end the show so that we
Yeah.
can go get some dinner,
Go get dinner.
and we'll talk to you all next week.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.